What's up, everyone? So today I have a very special guest, someone that I have really looked up to for quite a while, and I'm really excited for this podcast. I have Rachel Espinoza, who is the Modern Shaman. She is a shaman,
Mm.
psychic seer, and honestly, I can't even put in the words all that you do, as I'm sure it's hard for you to put in the words and label all that you do, but um, very happy to have you today. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. That's a humbling introduction, but I'm really glad to be with you, Josh. Thank you.
Yes. Well, and honestly, it is. It's really cool to have you on here. For me, it's kind of like a full circle kind of thing because of watching you, and I've never really told this story too much, except for in person with people and stuff. But I've always, or so I had a period in my life where I was working a job. I hated it. It sucked, and Spirit led me to quit that job and take a job that was way less money.
Mm.
And but I was working at nighttime delivering papers in my car,
Mm.
and I had like 6 hours every night to listen and watch whatever I wanted to. And I came across you on YouTube, and I started watching your stuff, and I was like, man, I really love your just how genuine you are, and just how uh I don't know how connected you are. My very first teacher was a very genuine person as well, and I just respect that basically.
Mm.
So started going through all of your videos, and before I knew it, I had watched every single one of your videos. And
You're probably the only one out there.
well, and I think I messaged you one time, and I said like I watched all your videos, and you were like, "That's a heck of a lot of videos to hold." So anyway, your videos help me through a lot, and help me develop a lot, and connect with spirit in a way that um, I don't know, never really realized I could, basically. So I appreciate that.
Oh, it's
So
like an honor to hear because when you send stuff out, I'm sure it's like with your podcast. When you send stuff out just to the big web of people, you never really know how it's received unless they make a point to contact you or comment. And a lot of people just don't. So it's really encouraging to keep doing it because Spirit told me to do it from the very first video. They were like, you got to do it. And the first time I ever, my very first like YouTube video, I remember I posted it and then like wouldn't go back for 2 weeks. It was too like I was like, no, this is too much of my face on the camera, and I was just not comfortable with it in that way a long time ago. So it's been a long kind of growth process. So it's encouraging to me also to hear from people like you that felt like genuinely connected to the material. Mhm.
well, and I hear a lot of people on YouTube say that it almost feels fake at first, like it's bots that's liking your stuff or watching your stuff, and then all of a sudden people start commenting or people message you, and you're like, hold on, these are real people. And then we did a little YouTube with our family where we were like videoing every day. I decided to stop doing that because I didn't like the energy of my family being out there all the time. So,
Mhm.
but we ended up getting like not a ton, but in like 2 months we got 500 followers, and we were getting a lot of likes and a lot of comments. And I was like, I don't feel like these people are real. And then we were at uh, like different places, and people were like, I love your videos. And we're like, hold on, what? Like that? I didn't think people were actually watching them. So it was really cool. But then we just quit. But anyway, so one thing I wanted to ask you, because for me last night, I, I forgot it was a full moon,
Mhm.
and every month, just or every time there's a full moon, just about, I lay in bed and my body feels like it is just in overdrive almost, and like any sound I'm like hyperactive to it, and I have trouble sleeping. I ground myself and I do what I need to do to get to sleep. But then we had the eclipse as well,
Mhm.
and real quick funny story about that. My wife comes running in the room last night at like 1 in the morning. She's like, "Are you still awake?" I'm like, "Yeah, what's up?" And she was like, "Look," and she showed me her phone, and she's been asking to see an owl for months now. And there was an owl that came down and landed on her fence last night and was just hanging out with her for a while. But
Well,
I wanted to basically just ask you, Have you been feeling any of the effects of the full moon, or what do you do to protect yourself from any of the stuff? And then, side question to that, is there anything special with this full moon that you know about, at least, uh, with the eclipse and all of that? What do you feel like that does to the energy?
Oh, those are big questions. Okay. You want me to tackle the moon and the eclipse first, and then we'll talk about
Yes.
the. Okay. So I love lunar cycles. I feel like it's part of our natural circadian rhythm as humans to align with planetary systems. And I am not an astrologer. Like, there's a million people that are smarter than me when it comes to astrology. I just recognize that it is very powerful and potent in our human experience. And it always seems kind of arrogant to assume that they don't impact us. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I'm bigger than the sun and the moon. I'm like, no, you ain't. You know, really can't compared. And so much of our body is water that, of course, the moon affects the tides of our own body. You know, and so, anyways, I love to take it in. Like, when it comes to the full moon, I don't necessarily protect myself. I kind of do the opposite. Like, I want to be out. I want to be soaking it up. I want my skin to be taking the luminance. I just feel like the veil is very thin, so there's a lot of activity, which is probably why it's hard for you to see, because that space in between kind of our waking state and spiritual state is very, and
Mm.
we're more aware of what's going on. So I use it.
Well, and I think that's a good point because instead of trying to fight it or something, I think it is because so for me, I like to go out and take it in as well.
Mhm.
But then I feel like it kind of like I don't know, it makes my body overactive in a sense, or my energy overactive. But I think, and that was the point that I was thinking of as well, is that our bodies are mostly water, and if the moon's affecting the tide and all that, it's definitely affecting us, and then the energy from it as well. So, um, yeah, I agree.
Yes, yes, yes. But it's a great time when I talk about using it, kind of like you said, if you feel overwhelmed, and I think empaths in particular. So if you're clairsentient, you pick up on energy, you're going to feel it more than others. So there are obviously ways to mitigate that overwhelmed feeling just by setting boundaries. Like, okay, I'm fine to connect when I'm sitting there with my journal, but I don't want you to keep me up at night tonight. You're kind of set that structure and basically just very clear intention before you go to bed. You know,
That makes sense. Yeah, yeah,
uh,
I agree.
yeah. I mean, I think that is such a good time to journal and talking about the eclipse. The eclipse is interesting because it's bringing out the shadow. So anytime an eclipse comes around, all the stuff that we like to hide, the skeletons in the closet, the shadow stuff comes up.
Yes.
Is more like right to the surface. So that's not always fun, but you can use it again in terms of your own personal development.
Yeah, I agree, and I think, I don't know, I always the way I look at it is when that energy is cut off, like, from the moon or the sun. We watched the big eclipse that happened a few years ago for us in Ohio, and, it was really cool with the sun and just watching it go away, but it was like just that cut off of energy for a second, and then it's like a reset, almost like a washing away of something. But I don't know. I thought that was I always think that it's really cool feeling that. And then I was like, man, it's a full moon and a eclipse. That's just I don't know, double
Double.
double the energy.
Yes.
Yes, pretty much. All right. Well, I just wanted to ask about that and get your thoughts on that for a second. But one of the first things I wanted to talk about is just so you're a shaman, and there's many people that hear the word shaman or hear that someone is, doing shaman work, but they don't really understand exactly what a shaman is doing or what kind of work they do. And for me, I'm familiar with it, not an expert on it at all. But uh, I guess if you could just generalize just for everyone before we start talking about more into it, of what actually, when we say shaman, what actually is a shaman versus just a regular, I don't know, energy healer or just something like that.
So I would say that a shaman is an intermediary between the human world and the spirit world. And that can be kind of funneled in a lot of different ways, whether it is an intermediary to heal and bring as a healer, whether it's an intermediary to be channeling spirit, whether it is an intermediary to look at future probabilities, timelines, past lives, whether it's, so it's essentially a intermediary that has access to other realms and is able to translate that for others.
And that's awesome. When it comes to being a shaman, I have a few friends that are going through shaman training right now, or the journey to become a shaman, however you would phrase that. But I mean, what is the process of becoming a shaman? And I know there's a lot there, but it is, do you have to find um, like an elder shaman to teach you, or is it something that you can go on a journey yourself and learn yourself, or what would you say about that?
That's a good question because I don't think there's one answer. I mean, really, honestly, when you talk about people's spiritual journey or spiritual path, there's never like a one size fits all. And like, you know what I mean? Like, it's this way for everybody because we're so unique and really devaluing the personal experience if you made it sound like everyone should be the same, or I wouldn't want someone to like judge their experience and be like, well, it must not be valid because it wasn't the way Rachel and Josh said. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
I do. Yes, yes, I do. I
Uh,
agree.
there are traditional paths. So my family is Cherokee. My father's Cherokee. And so my path may have been different from other people's path. Some of what I learned was from them, but most of it was a perspective. The training I felt like and the calling I feel like was from God. Like that came to me as a purpose and a calling, similar to the way people feel called to particular careers or paths in life. Like I want to be a doctor and I've wanted to be a doctor since I was 3 years old. That's who I am. So I think that root of becoming a shaman or that desire is recognized a lot of times in people. Like they recognize it in themselves as, man, I think I've always been called to this. It feels so familiar to me. And I would say that is the first thing is like the calling that you should have or that initiates you onto the path is that you feel like it's not just like an academic study. You know what I'm saying?
I do. And so you said your father was Cherokee. Is that what you said?
Sure.
That's awesome. Um, I have a few things. I guess I'll say this first. So, what age were you when you started your shaman journey, or is it just something that's kind of been instilled in you your whole life?
I have so many people that have asked me that question, Josh, and I don't know what age. I mean, I've been me since I was born. You know what I'm saying? And so I've always been me, no matter what label is put on me. You know what I'm saying? So the label of a shaman and that title didn't come really, honestly, I didn't pick that title for myself until I had a business doing this. And I had to pick it. And you're like, okay, so the title to me, but so anyways, that's hard to pin down for the journey. But I know when I started recognizing um, aspects that were clearly visions or psychic connections or premonition or um, precognizance of like knowing things about people. So I had that since I was a tiny child, as long as I can remember. That's how my brain has worked. And I just see things that were about to happen. So I'm predominantly clairvoyant. So it would come a lot of times in vision, but I never had a language for what that was. So I would just say, it seems like a dream, or I feel like I've been here before, or I just had a dream and you're gonna, I don't know, turn the TV channel to this and this is gonna be on. You know, it wasn't even necessarily profound. It was just that's how my spirit and my body integrated. And so that's the way I lived my life. And I didn't think it was strange because you don't know what's in anyone else's head. You know, it's just the way um, my life has been always. So it wasn't until I got probably, I think I was in middle school. So probably like 11 or 12, sixth grade, 11 or 12, that I started like kind of giving things that were very direct warnings to people. And when it would happen, then others started recognizing my gifts. So that seemed like that was the first kind of formal, like, okay, she's ready to learn more about this, to have more training, to kind of, yeah, move further down the path. Otherwise, I was just kind of like the kid that always thought she knew everything, like a bossy kid.
Well, and were your parents supportive, of, like, those abilities that you had? Because I think that's because my oldest is super intuitive, and I just think if my parents were actually because they it's like, "Mom, I see this spirit over there," and they're like, "Ah, it's just fake, it's your imagination," and then I had to unlearn all of that it's not my imagination, but now my son's like, "Hey, Dad, there's a monster over there," and I'm like, "Hey, well, let's talk to it. Let's get it on out of here. Let's figure out, is it really a monster or whatever," and just things like that. But were your parents supportive of it?
I love that story you just shared about that makes me happy.
We've had so many amazing journeys together. What can I tell you a really quick story? It's so we went to what was it? Earthworks Foothills, I believe is what it was called. The Dina tribe utilize this space and so on. But long story that's made. I'm going to make it shorter. Uh, we were we were walking this trail and it was like muddy and nasty. And my kids do not like going out and walking long trails anyway. But this day, both of them were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And we were like, "Okay." We actually went to Serpent Mound, and Serpent Mound was closed that day, and it was like an hour and a half drive for us. So we went to this next place. So anyway, we're walking through these foothills, and the echo was just it was just crazy, the echo that you can hear. And from what I understood, they built these um, structures, or the way that they made their paths and they built the earth up. It was uh, people didn't really understand it, I guess, and it for me, it felt like it was for the echo, for the sound, and so on. But what I'm getting at is we were walking up this trail, and we got to the top of it, and my son was like, "Oh, that was kind of weird." And I was like, what happened?" He was like, "This yellow just flashed in front of me," and then he said it felt like a video game loading screen. He said, and then I started hearing your name, Josh, 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 and I was like, that's kinda weird, but, I tried to tap into it, I didn't get anything really, so I was like, "Well, just take note of it, let's see if anything else happens."
Mhm.
And then we had to walk back down the hill, and as we're walking back down the hill, I'm sensing something is going on, and my father-in-law who's passed away, who is our one of our guardians now, he just looks after us a lot, he was walking behind us, and my son was experiencing all these different things, and I told him, I said, "Buddy, let me stay back for a second. You go up with your mom and your brother. I'm gonna close my eyes for a second, just kinda feel into things." And I did, and all of a sudden, I saw this tribe, like, lining the trail, playing drums and having rattles and chanting and doing all kinds of stuff. And right before this, my son said he saw a shadow that looked like himself behind him sitting on a downed tree, and he was like, "But I feel like I'm leaving it behind or something." He said, "It's really weird," and I was like, "That is weird." Then that's when I said I wanna tap into it because I was like, shadows and this, I wanna make sure that it's nothing crazy. So, as I see him walking and we're walking, this tribe's chanting, and they're like it was a ceremony for my son, it felt like, and I was like, "What is going on?" And I start walking through this ceremony, and they're all, doing their thing, And then my father-in-law, I get out of the ceremony. I'm just now on the trail. My father-in-law comes up behind me and he's like, you need to walk faster. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And I start walking faster. And then he's like, all right, now stop. He said, have your son come up here. So I yelled for my son and he came up and I was like, hey, buddy, let's close our eyes together and just feel into what's going on here. And he was like, okay. So we closed our eyes and all of a sudden we heard this buzzing and it became so loud it was echoing throughout the whole entire valley that we were in. And I was like, that sounds like bees, but it's like 40 or 35 degrees outside right now. There shouldn't be bees out. And we sat there and we closed our eyes and was listening to that hum and it was like radiating through our body. And then I looked over at this tree and there was hundreds of bees swarming around this tree off in the distance that all of a sudden were active for some reason. We just walked past it on the way up and then on the way down they were active. So anyway, we went through that whole journey and my son uh basically I felt into it and it felt like he like there was a ceremony that was leaving some shadow part of himself behind or something along those lines. But uh, he talked about that for like the whole ride home and the next day. And it was like the coolest thing he ever experienced. And he's just intuitive like that and sensitive. And we've had many different journeys like that. So,
Wow. How old
and he's 7, he's going to be 8.
was
Uh,
this that happened, or how old was
he
he?
was 7. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Well, then I did some research and I heard or I read that the Dina tribe would use those foothills for ceremonies and stuff like that and celebration. And I was like, I mean, it all makes sense. But anyway, I just love that story because uh, he's just so sensitive and just such a intuitive little guy. But
And it sounds like he's like very articulate with explaining it. Like to say, I feel like it's me behind me. Like, you know what I mean? Like that,
yes.
that takes some articulation to process because kids don't always like get what's going on. They know it feels weird and they know, but that is amazing that he was able to explain it and
Mhm.
hold the same vision, essentially be a part of the ceremony with you. Like that's another thing
Right.
is collaborative visioning. There's so much power in terms of, yeah, bringing that together. That's really profound. That is amazing.
Agree. Yes.
Like down in some sort of like journal. So when he's older, like remember this.
That is true. I probably should write that down.
Yeah.
Uh, well, and that just my whole point in telling that is just that because I was saying like, were your parents supportive and so on, and if I wasn't supportive, that would have never happened. And I mean, it would have happened, but it wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have been able to realize it as much. And I just think it's so important for parents to support their children. And I know you support, well, at least from what I've seen on Facebook and other areas, that you support your children in that way. And so, were your parents were pretty supportive of your gifts and everything?
Yes. Yes, they were. I think for sure my father, I mean, he was the one that taught me to meditate when I was a kid. But I still grew up in the South, and he was a Sunday school teacher, so he was very integrated. And I was too, but at the same time, he was very open to, I guess, just ideas. He wasn't closed-minded and he wasn't afraid of spiritual experiences. He himself would always share visions that he had or dreams that he had. We would talk about dreams. So he would ask every morning when we're eating cereal, like, did anyone have any dreams? What did y'all dream about? And just kind of validate that realm as important. So we talked about that kind of stuff, and I didn't feel like I had to hide it, or definitely wasn't rejected for it. And I think that environment of safety is so pivotal to our kind of allowing ourselves to be who we truly came here to be.
Hmm.
Whether it's I want to be an artist and I'm scared to show my art because I'm scared of that criticism. I don't have a safe space to be truly myself, or or something like this. It's essentially all those internal realms that we're sharing. It's like we're getting naked or like kind of exposing, taking off our skin. Like, this is what happens on the inside of me. Please don't hurt me because I'm sharing my inside thoughts. And don't tell me I'm crazy because then I'll just retract back into myself. So, but like stories like you shared with your son make me really excited for these future generations because I hear a lot of that, from people saying, like, I'm so much, I'm just more open hearted and creating that kind of conducive environment for kids to develop and not feel guilty or shameful around their experiences. Mm-hmm.
And I agree. I see so many people nowadays that are supporting their children in that way and in other ways. There's just, I don't know, we're just at such a turning point,
Yeah.
I believe at least, that and and to see the parents validating their children, and even for me in my sessions or people coming in, I've had people bring their small children in to, and as I'm sure you have as well, to to uh, validate what they're going through and help them because they don't fully understand. They believe their children, but they don't know how to help them understand why they're feeling someone else's energy or why they're seeing this or that. And I just think that number one, it's an honor to be able to help guide anyone in with that, but
Mm-hmm.
especially children. And I love to see the parents, like you were saying, just taking that time and trusting that their kids just aren't seeing, I don't know, it's not in their imagination.
Yeah.
Although kids' imaginations can get wild at times, and we do have to discern on what are they creating with their imagination. Doesn't mean it's not real, but it could mean that they're creating something in their reality, and I don't know, but I do love that though. It, and I also think that children, uh, I think I don't know what generation, but most of the children at this point are just a big they play a big role in what's happening on Earth right now, and I think that as you can see with everything happening in the world, there's a big shift on seeing the truth or seeing things for what they are and being able to tap into our authentic self and not um, allow the lies to settle in and allow
Mhm.
this veil to be pulled over our face and us not to see the truth in things. I think children and adults at this point are starting to see the truth in everything. And I think being able to help your kids understand how to process energy, how to especially process emotion and process what's going on with the truth that they're seeing, I just think is super important.
Yes, 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 yes. I mean, when I think just our children in general, when you think about what really makes an impact in anyone's life, that is a parent, I think the largest impact you have is what you teach your children because that outlives you. A few generations, people will forget who you are, they'll forget your name, your stories will be gone. But your children will have had other children and their children will have had children. And so the impact of that and the depth with which you were able to truly pour yourself into them and then them in turn into their children and so on and so forth, that lasts eternity. You know what I'm saying? Bloodlines keep going. So anyways, that's a huge, huge, huge need. And yeah, it's really important.
I agree. So kind of switching topics here, something I wanted to touch base with you about. I believe I remember watching some stuff a long time ago where you were talking about how you work with police with like missing person cases and stuff like that. Is that something you care to talk about?
Sure.
Okay,
Well,
so
I can't think
well,
of names or anything like that, but yeah, I can talk about it.
cool. Well, and I was just curious because that's something earlier on in my experience with my spiritual journey. That's something I considered as well. But then hearing from you and others just how heavy it can get over time, I decided not to do it. But there's been many times where someone's missing. I see a picture, I know where they're at, and I'm like, do I message someone or do I tell the police or what do I do? And um, so I was just curious on how was that? How was that process? I mean, what was the process and how did you manage it? And why did you decide to not do it anymore? Or do you still do it?
I do it if people ask, but I don't promote that as one of my services. It's not on my website anywhere, but sometimes people just know me and, or friends or family or so sometimes it still pops up. But um yes. So I got into that because I took a psychic development class a long time ago, and the lady that taught it did missing person cases. And because I'm predominantly clairvoyant, I was like, heck no, I don't want anything to do with it because I don't want to see it. I don't want to feel it. And part of, the way that I connect with people is through energy melding. So that's like moving, kind of like remote viewing. It's moving your spirit into someone else's body or aligning spirits with them to where you feel what they feel, you see what they see, you hear what they hear. So that would be terrifying in terms of going into missing person or homicide or, kidnapping cases. However, spirit, like the second you say, no, I don't want that, spirit's like, yeah, that's what I'm calling you towards, And so my teacher just asked me to like help out with a case one time that she was working on. And I was like, yeah, I'll tell you what I get, but I don't know how helpful it's going to be. Like I had no sense of like believing that I could do that at all. And so it was the first case we did was a missing person case. And I saw like a car turned upside down in this riverbed with some trees. And I was like, okay, I mean, it could be anywhere, really. I was like, this is what I see. And she was like, okay, well, what do the trees look like? Because she was on site with the police officers, like walking around. And I was like, well, they kind of look like cottonwood trees, which we have here. And they have these big kind of heart-shaped leaves and they're real tall trees. And she was like, okay, well, we're right here and we're right in front of this cottonwood tree. And I said, well, it looks like it, the car just like flipped over and it kind of got tucked under like it was raining. And so it kind of got washed under this little washway to where you can't see it when you're driving on the street up above. So they went under there, they found the car, they found her. And that was the first one I ever did. And I was like, oh my gosh, this really works. I could do,
Wow.
so much of the psychic experience, you don't necessarily go into it being like, yeah, I got this. No.
So how did your teacher end up on the site? Like, did she feel into it and was like, it's in this area and she was there and then she was communicating with you or was
Yes. So she was working with law enforcement and they knew the kind of area, like they knew the road that they were driving. I think they were driving to and from work. It was like the road that they normally took. And the last time they were seen. So there were already some evidence. So they were kind of working that. But
that's awesome.
so that's how I got into it. And then she eventually got sick and just turned all of her cases over to me. She would just kind of tell people like, she can do it, go to her. So I just haphazardly got into it. And then I had to set up really strong psychic boundaries with it. So when I first got into it, I was like, I don't want to feel anything. So I don't mind seeing it, but I don't want to feel it. I don't want to feel the trauma of that experience. And then I also had a boundary of like, okay, as soon as I'm done tuning in, I want to drop any of this energetic memory as soon as I'm done. So within 1 second of like opening my eyes, I don't want to remember it. I don't want to feel it. I don't want to be traumatized and it pop up in my dream tonight. So anyways, I had really strong psychic boundaries that I had to learn very fast to create a sense of safety with going to those places. Because some of the times I was going into like the murderer's body to see what weapon were they using, where did they hide it, or what, just so those are intense spaces to go into. But I think, you know, like so much of this, if your heart is in the right place, and I always just told myself, like, look, if this was me or this was my kid, I mean, I would want to take every freaking option I could possibly get to find. I don't care if, like what it is, like if anybody can help. So in my mind, I was like, look, if it's going to help, heck yeah, I'll try to help. I don't, take what it's worth. I don't know, but I'll give you what I can get. And if it's helpful, then I'm so glad it's helpful. Um, so that's kind of what I took, but it was a lot. It was a lot because like the kidnapping cases, they would call all during the nighttime. A lot of them were in Mexico and different places, so different time zones. And if the kidnapper called, they would call me. You know what I mean? You have to kind of be on call like all the time for those. So that, but once I had kids, I was like, I can't keep this up. I had babies, and I was like, I can't do it at the same time. I was like, I need like a normal, legitimate practice where I have like office hours, and so then I shifted over. That's what got me out of it. It's just the practicality, honestly.
And I've heard that it is a draining um, process with the actual process itself, but then energetically and stuff. Did you feel like your boundaries upheld pretty good, or did you feel like it still kind of leaked in at times? And the reason I asked that is because I've worked on things like that as well, and I'm like, even though I'm setting some boundaries and I keep reaffirming those boundaries, something leaks over a little bit usually. But I was just curious.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, boundaries are like living things. You have to keep tightening them, or you learn each time something slips in. Like, all right, I clearly had that little opening there. I'm gonna have to close that up. So yes, that happens. I mean, I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and it's like I still, will have an experience, and I'm like, wow, that's a new one. I'm gonna have to create a new little boundary on that. So yeah,
Well, and I tell people it's like inner or like muscle memory almost. Like you have to be able to like the boundary is gonna get pushed, and you have to like say no. This is my new boundary, and you have to just keep reestablishing that until it becomes muscle memory or whatever.
yeah.
And
Just, I mean, parents, as a parent, you totally get that. You can give your kids a boundary. It doesn't mean they're going to follow it all the time. Sometimes they're like, "Daddy, daddy, please," or whatever. And you're like, I said no. You know,
yes,
you have to affirm it. And some spirits are like that. Some spirits are like ornery little kids, and other spirits are like very militant, and they're like, okay, yes, ma'am. So everybody, I mean, just like we react differently, the same would be true in the spirit realm sometimes with that.
you said something a long time ago about at least I believe it was you, but you said that working with your spirit guides and just working with spirit in general, it's almost like when you're setting your boundaries, it's almost like you're a teacher on the first day of class, and you're like setting the rules for the class or whatever. And I kind of that, and if that was you that said it, great. If it wasn't, whatever. But it,
Use that example all the time.
well, and I thought it was, but when I heard that, I was like, that's a good point. And then I started to just set those boundaries. And one of the ones that I set that was super helpful was, um, I think you said something about this as well at one point, but just telling my guides to slow down the message. And if I don't get it, repeat it until I get it. And that was like a huge game changer for me. And once I started doing that, it was like the messages wasn't like boom and then gone. It was slower, it was there, and I was able to replay it over and over. And if I didn't get it, I would ask, can you give me this message in a different way? And
Mhm.
then they would give me it in a completely different way that would make complete sense. And then I would understand why they were showing it to me the other way. And it would just grow my database. But I think that's just, it's boundaries and all of that is just super helpful.
I love what you shared. First of all, good job actually using what I was teaching. Because sometimes I feel like, you say it, but people don't do it. Um, and so much of, I'm sure you hear the same thing when you're in this realm and working with clients. So often people will talk about their experiences as if they're totally one sided. Like spirit does this to me, and I'm always like attacked by this, and I feel this, and I wait, and I'm like, well, you're a participant in this relationship. Like you can say, just like you said, if I don't get the message, repeat it again or slow down. Or whatever it is, don't poke me if you don't, you know what I mean? Like there's a conversation to be had here. And I feel like so often that's a misconception about the spirit realm. Like they have all these powers and I don't, I'm like, no, honey, you're both soul in nature. What do you think your soul is?
Well, and that's another thing that you helped me out a lot with as well is that you said something along the lines of we are in control of this physical realm. Like this is our realm, and we hold power over this realm. And the spiritual aspect is visiting
Mhm.
this realm, and we can uh, basically have control over it. And at that time, I was actually going through a lesson of being not attacked, but attached by negative, um, whatever we would call it, from people I was doing healing sessions on, readings on, from houses I was cleansing, just all of that stuff. And even though I was doing all these boundaries, protection, all that stuff, it was all still coming. And honestly, that was a life changing thing for me. And that's something that I teach to this day is that you have control over this realm and nothing is allowed to influence you or do anything without you giving it permission. And that was just huge for me.
Yes. Yes, yes. I agree with you. I remember the first time I set a boundary for spirits to speak to me one at a time because I used to have it was so chaotic in my head, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I this life changing," like I can hear you clearly one at a time instead of like if your kids are talking to you at once and there's two people talking, you're like, "Good Lord, I can't focus my energy on both of you at the same time." So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I remember I had a medium my mediumship started opening up and I went to this mediumship meetup and I was very, um, um, I had stage fright really badly. And this was the very beginning of my journey. And I went there thinking we were just going to tap into some stuff. And then the lady's like, we're going to do podium style mediumship. And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, I'm just going to have you stand up in front of like
Spotlight on your head.
right? So I was like, "Oh my gosh," and because I would get to the point where I feel like I'm gonna pass out, just it would be really bad. So it was my turn. I already had a spirit that was coming to me the night before for this event and whatever, but I stood up, did the reading. It was so good. And then at the end, there was a person that didn't get a reading yet, and the person holding the group was like, "Hey, Josh, why don't you give them a reading since your last one went good or whatever?" And I did, and it was a really good reading as well. So someone from that group asked me to come and do a mediumship party at their house for their friends and family, just where I can give readings and stuff, and they can hang out. And I was like, "Oh, that sounds fun. I'll do it." So I did, and I tried group style, and it was like just like I'm seeing this, but I'm seeing that, and I could not organize what was going on. So then I was like, let's do one on one. So we went in and started doing one on one. That was great. But then shortly after that, I saw something uh, uh, from you, I believe, saying to uh, that you can ask spirit to talk to you one at a time or something like that. So instead of all of them coming, I just staggered them where it was like,
In case in a single file line. Mhm.
yes, well, and it's like, so I can see who needs to talk, but then who's next is behind me,
Mhm.
and I can or behind them, not me. So like I can see who needs to be talked to first and so on, and who I'm talking to, and I think that's a super helpful thing for anyone that's in the mediumship is just understanding that uh, you can set the rules, you can set the boundaries, and yeah. Do you when you look at mediumship, some people teach like gatekeepers and you have free spirit guys that do this and that. Do you feel that way or do you how do you feel about that process? Or do you feel like the spirits just come to you or do you feel like you have one guide that filters it out?
I'm going to be honest with you, which may be totally different from other people, but I realize I teach this, okay? Like I teach these things, but I'm just not there's something in me that kind of rubs me the wrong way when there's like a very strict process of like, this is how it is, because spirit does not work that way. Like, if you connect with spirit, it's not always the same every time. So my structures are basically like, I need to call you by name. I need to call you in. You don't get to just show up and show up to my house uninvited. The same in a mediumship session. Like I ask my client, who do you want to talk to? Okay. I don't want old Aunt, Susie that like just is a super talkative person, but you don't really care. And that's not your most important relationship or whatnot. And she's going to dominate the experience. And then you walk away and you're like, yeah, we just talked to Susie the whole time. I didn't even get to talk to my mom, So I only invite them in by name. That's my main rule. And I have organizational flow like that too. Like they stand in a single file line. They can speak one at a time only when spoken to. So I ask the questions, they respond back. But that's just clairaudience. Obviously, there's way more going on that I'm communicating about what they're wearing, their emotional energy that they're communicating, how they're speaking, how they're looking, how they're responding to their questions. So I'm doing that in terms of the question, but whenever I'm working with a client, I'm trying to give them any and all connections to their loved one. Yeah, but really that's the only like boundary that I have of like, I call you in by name.
Well, and that's one of the things I love about you is that you're not like the labeler, like you're not like, it's not all like, you just let things flow, I guess, and the way that they should. And for me, I feel the same way. Someone told me like, "Oh, you have to have 3 different guides. One's a gatekeeper, one's that." And I was like, "That doesn't feel like that's what I need."
Yeah, you're like, oh, I don't resonate with that. Yeah. And sometimes that
Exactly.
can be super detrimental in this field in particular because it makes you second guess your intuition. And
I
that's
agree.
the most important relationship that you need to validate and connect and keep strong. Like, no, I don't feel that's true. And so I can't just get your dogma and put it on top of that. Like spirit's gonna, be the most important thing. So if spirit says no, I'm just gonna go with that.
Oh, and I think that's such an important point because I think there are a lot of people in this field that are like my way or not, or you're not going to make it or whatever. And I think the number one thing you can say is like, this is the way that I do it. But if you're feeling like you should do it another way, make sure that you do it that way, or at least explore it and take whatever you can from whatever I'm saying, and you just intuitively feel the rest. And that was the way I felt with like energy healing as well. When I would do that, there were all these people telling me I should do it this way and this way. And for like 7 years, I was like, I'm not learning from anybody. I'm going to learn from my guides or from God, universe, or my own intuitive place. And I just started doing sessions, and that was more. I just was talking about this last night, actually. It is so much more beneficial to learn from myself than it was learning from someone else. Although I feel like it's very important to learn the basics of something or the foundations of something, but then you're and I think this is a good point, is just that you can do it. Everyone can do it. Everyone has it in them to learn and be able to do whatever they need to do. And you don't need anybody else for that. And I think that's been my biggest challenge in my whole career is trying to get people to understand that they can do it and that they are empowered and they have the ability to do stuff, because oftentimes I hear I can't, or like I can't see anything, or I can't see visions, or I can't hear spirit, and I'm like, I promise you, you can. You're just not realizing that you're able to yet. But I think that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, yes. Agreed. And I think so often when it comes to the psychic gifts, like when people say, I can't see anything, there are so many different types of ways that spirit speaks to us that it's just like any sort of comparison in life. You can't really compare yourself to anyone else and be like, well, I don't get it like they do. Their visions are so clear and they see all this stuff and they can go forward and backward in time. And I feel my gut. That's all I get. And I'm like, or whatever it is that you get. I'm like, well, start there. That's the way spirit's speaking. Then you better be listening to that gut. And you can develop that. What side of the gut is it on? Is it behind? Is it contracting? Is it blowing up? Is it getting hot? Is it getting cold? There are so many different languages, even within the gut, that you can strengthen that communication with spirit, no matter which way they're choosing to speak to you. I think just validating yourself and that connection is so important. I love that you said that you were like, I'm not going to learn from anyone, because sometimes that really trips people up. They don't follow spirit in the healing. And the healing may be totally different. And I have had that a million times over, where they'll be like, I don't know, like make a little, someone was trying to get pregnant and they were like, make a little mud baby. I'm like, what the heck? Like, it was like this little baby shaped like mud. I mean, it's laughable, right? I was like, but I know better to not think I know more than spirit. You know what I'm saying? And I don't. I mean, I think that's the best place to be in, that humble place, just like you were when you went up on that podium for the mediumship. When you are in that humble place, you are in open valve, because there's no ego there. You know what I mean? It's just like, okay, there's not, I can't do it clearly. So I'm going to just be open and let it flow, because this Rachel person is not strong enough to have the answer, or not smart enough, or, I don't know how to heal that. So anyways, that's a great play. I think that of humility and purity is what makes the healings, the readings, the most potent and powerful, because spirit can get in there. You're not, you know what I mean? You're not distorting any of it. It's just pure spirit. Because I'm not anyway.
Right, I agree, and I think that the true ability to fall into that space is, when you do realize that you have it all within you and you don't necessarily need to do what other people are doing, and you just allow spirit to guide you like you're saying, and that's been my big motto in life, is just let spirit guide me. In the beginning of my journey, had a lot of ego that was there, and then dropped a lot of that. And at this point, it's just, I feel like spirit is just leading me, and I'm going to go where I need to go. And I hear people, I will, I'm in a place right now where I don't go searching for, like, I don't know how to say it, like, things to learn, I guess, or whatever. I just allow spirit to bring it to me, whatever I need to learn. And that's kind of the way it worked with a lot of the YouTube video stuff that I saw. And that's how you popped up as well, is just spirit was, I would feel like I need to open. And also, I want to say, it's not like spirit was in my ear saying, open YouTube. It was like, it's like I felt it. I was like, "Oh, YouTube would be cool right now." And so I opened it up, and then I scrolled, and then I'm like, "I feel like I need to go back up to that one." But I'm just gonna keep scrolling. I'm like, "No, I gotta go back up." So then I go, click on it, and then it's something that I needed to hear, or something that I needed to learn. And I think once everybody, or once someone realizes they have it within them, and they're allowed, or they're, I guess, allowed to tap into that, and they don't have to do it a certain way, that frees a person up. And I teach that with when I teach Reiki, because in the beginning of my journey, my teacher taught me, and then I was trying to find YouTube videos of how people do Reiki energy healing sessions. So I made sure I was doing it right. And then I started doing it, and I was like, there's no right way to do it. And then I started holding a weekly, healing circle, where we would get tables out and we would do healing on each other. And I saw these people, and there's some people that's like waving their hand, and there's other people that are like chanting. And I was like, they're free and they're doing what they need to do. And, and that's when it opened up within me. And then, uh, there was just a realization that when it comes to the energetic realm, you can literally do whatever you want to do. For example, if you see extra energy in someone's stomach, you can imagine it as spaghetti and take an imaginary fork and wrap it up in that fork and take it away. And it's just, I don't know, understanding all of that. So,
I love that. Yes,
well,
I'm total agreement. And yeah, I love it, because I think so often the academic side can kind of get us into that ego trap. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I know I'm doing it right because that's what my teacher told me. Or that's the way I was trained versus like, no, you're doing it right when you're listening to spirit. And sometimes that's throwing the, academics out the door. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes that's what comes through. But when I'm teaching things, I always say, like, your way is my way. Your way is my way. It's not Rachel's way. Your way is my way. So let that always trump what I'm going to say. Let that come first and foremost.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and something else that I want to touch on, kind of shifting a little bit, is the kind of, and definitely don't want to get into like political anything, but the state of the collective consciousness right now. Um, is that something that you tap into a lot or feel, as far as like, I guess I would ask it like this: where do you feel generally what is going on with the collective consciousness or with universal consciousness or Earth's consciousness? Like, are we in a place where things are coming to light, or are the negative beings here on Earth just twisting everything to, I don't know, make it work in their favor? Is humanity really rising up, and is there going to be a big shift of consciousness, or are we in the midst of that right now? And I have my own opinion, but I was just curious on if you had an opinion about that.
Rachel does, which may be different than Spirit's opinion. um, so I am an eternal optimist, mostly because I am very conscious of the world that we create. And so I would never like want to give my energy to creating a negative world. So my worldview will always choose to be positive for that matter, just in particular. So I mean, with that being said, like, I feel like we're going great places. Even when I hear about things like AI and people are like, oh, AI is taking over these fear. Basically, when I recognize fear in someone or in the story they're telling or in the messaging that's coming through, there's always a flip of that that's like, you know what though? My kids recognize AI so fast and much. That's AI. I'm going to seek for the truth. I can already tell that's not the truth. It's making them seek the truth like nothing else. So there's always this like positive that's available in every coin that has a negative side. There's a positive side. That's just the way that, basically polarity works. And we live in a polarity universe, or at least here on Earth. And so, anyways, it's always available. And I'm always going to choose that positive side. So I think we're in a great place. I think we are always in a pivotal place. I think we're always in a state of change if anyone is ready for that state of change. But it's always a personal decision. It's never like we're all going to make this decision all at once. You know what I'm saying? So we can talk about the collective, but it's still going to come down to me and you and each individual person making an individual decision. So I can tune into collectives, which shifts. And if you've ever tried to read collectives or political, all of that, it's just like this in the energy world. And so probabilities with that, with so many people, are not really my thing. I mean, I can do it, but I have no interest in it really because it shifts so quickly. But I can tell you just by viewing my own children that I have a positive outlook on where the world is going, just from like the story that you shared with your son and how open hearted people are to this spiritual language. They're way more open spiritually than we were when I started doing my work. When people didn't know what a shaman was. I mean, sometimes now finding the real one versus kind of just the person who puts on the show or is just wanting to do psychedelics or something. I mean, sometimes that's just what people are having to learn now of like finding the truth. But that is bringing people to like seek with such intensity right now. I think I think it's awesome. So I think the world is.
Agree. Well, and um, so I want to touch on something you just said, but I also want to touch on something you said a second ago.
You can always like say, okay, shut up. I want to comment on that. You can just stop me.
Well, and that's the hard thing with like virtual. I feel like it like sometimes you can't hear me if I say something, or so I'm like, do I say something? It's all good. Um, I guess my first question was, do you believe in, it's a two-part question. Do you believe in timelines and like we're jumping timelines at all times and stuff like that? And then, uh, and being completely transparent, this is something that doesn't vibe with me as much, but do you believe in the new earth stuff where it's like, people were saying, people that are in a lower density are going to be, left behind, and the people in a that are a higher frequency are going to trans or go to a new earth, or not go to, but like their reality is going to become a new earth and so on. And then, because when I feel into that, I'm like, I don't think it's so cut and dry, basically. And I think that our reality is what we make it. And that works on a personal level and a collective level as well, and a universe. I mean, just so many levels, obviously. But uh, so my question to you is, do you uh, believe in the thought of a new Earth? And if you're optimistic, then you most likely believe there's something there. But in 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 the way of some people are going to be left behind, other people are going to shift there, or do you feel like we're shifting timelines regardless, and we're some of us are shifting to more positive, some of us are shifting to more negative? What are your thoughts on that?
So there's a lot of different thoughts. And I should say again, this is just my perspective. This is not a universal truth. It's just based on my experience. Yes, that's really all it's based on. So, um, I believe, like when you talk about New Earth, I believe it's here, and I believe it's dimensional. So I believe that it's essentially integrated into our everyday experience, just like our 2D is integrated into our 3D experience. They're not mutually exclusive. You don't just live only 3D life. You know what I mean? You live 2D life, you live 1D. I mean, and by dimensions, I mean like literal dimensions, like something flat. It's my business card. I'm like, okay, something flat versus something that's spherical, right? Shaped. So the flat exists in this world that we live in too. It's still here. And so this idea of like leaving people behind, I mean, I don't really believe that just because that hasn't been my experience. Now, do people die or transition out of this realm? All the time. And if you want to say that's getting left behind outside of this dimension, okay, maybe that's relevant. And maybe that's one way that you can use that language and it makes sense. Um, but I know I also have access to higher dimensional realms right now in my 3D body anytime I want to do that. If I want to sit here and I want to connect with those other realms, I can do it here. So I don't have to leave my 3D experience. I can just send my spirit there. I can connect with that realm. So in that way, I believe it's here now. It's accessible now. Kind of like Jesus was always like, the kingdom is within. Like it's here. It's in here. You know what I mean? You don't got to go nowhere. We're not trying to. It's here. Anytime you want to be in that new earth, you can have connection to that. I have seen it. I see it if I try to connect into it. I've seen other dimensions. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So do I believe in timelines when you ask that kind of question? Yes, because part of what I do is connecting to timelines. I mean, if I look at past lives, I'm looking at a timeline. If I look at future and someone's asking me about a future probability, I'm looking at a timeline. But I also believe that you can shift them any way you want to, future or past. So because I have seen that has been my experience. It was my experience even as a child. If I would see a vision and be like, ooh, I didn't like that. Can I change it? If I did something different, I could change it. So I would play with that a lot as a child, whether that, like free will. But when there were other people involved and their decision kind of like was the most dominant decision in that scene, then they had more control over the timeline. But all that being said, I do believe in timelines. I do believe that all probabilities that can exist do exist. It's just what we choose to align with vibrationally and like sync up to.
Well, and something I was just reminded me, something I was just telling my son, my 7-year-old. Baseball season's starting here, so we're doing the baseball. He got out this year, and was not doing that great. He's usually amazing, and we sat down, and I was like, "Look, buddy," and I hit him in the nose and gave him a black eye with the ball. It's a bad situation, and I wasn't being reckless.
Right there.
Right. We were just tossing, and he got scared, and it sucked. But at that moment, I sat down with him, and I was like, "Buddy, if you," because he was like real hesitant to play again, and I was like, "If you want to quit baseball, you can, but I don't recommend that. And I think that you play video games or you do other things, and you try the same thing over and over and over until you get good at it." And I said, "I'm willing to practice with you with baseball as many times a week as you want and to get you better at it. And we will work on it gently to where you don't get hit in the nose again or whatever." And he chose to do that. So, to what I was trying to say is that I tell him, "You're already good at baseball. Like you're already an all-star at baseball. You just have to align with that and you have to put some action steps in to allow you to jump into that kind of timeline." I didn't phrase it like that because I'm not talking about timelines with him yet, but um, basically saying, how you said everything already exists. I agree. He's already an amazing baseball player. He just has to allow himself to be that and to hop into that. And also to touch on just all of the other things that you were saying, I agree that we are all uh, always shifting timelines. And there's been times when my wife and I have woke up and we're like, something is different. And we hop timelines together. And then there's other times where I'm like, I know I hopped the timeline and like I know this house isn't the same or this, like the little Mandela effect kind of
Mhm.
things or whatever. Um, and then also with the Mandela effect, are we jumping timelines or is it that we forgot that it wasn't Berenstein Bears or whatever it was. And so anyway, I think looking at it in general, that we are hopping timelines. And you said something about like political or just like collectively, it is so hard to look at any possibility of anything because there's so many players involved and so much energy involved. You're not going to be able to predict anything with certainty, just the same as everyone's always predicting contact with aliens. Each year we're going to have contact and it's this date this year, but oh no, it got pushed back because of this. And it's like, there's no doubt in my mind on some timeline we were going to have contact with alien and they were tapping into that, but then it changed because of whatever reason. So, yeah, I agree with everything that you're saying as well.
We're in alignment. I feel like I'm saying, I agree with what you said, and you're saying, I agree with what you
I
said.
know. Well, and yeah, yeah, well, just two genuine people agreeing with each other. Well, and then the other thing I was gonna say, you said something about um, how people are finding the true shamans or the true healers or the true, not someone that's putting on like a theatrical. I don't know how to say it honestly, and I can't put it into words, but I'm in like a crisis mode right now with that because there's been a lot of stuff from the spiritual community that's been turning me off in the way of that, and just spent like an hour driving in the car venting to my wife about it, going back and forth, and was just talking about it in meditation last night, and I never am I gonna down what anybody else is doing unless if they're doing some negative stuff, so that's not what at all what I'm saying, but there's just a lot of showmanship, or a lot of theatrics that are done in the spiritual community, and I just feel like it doesn't always have to be that way. Like, I feel like, I basically, I guess where I'm at right now is I feel like I am trying to be a bridge to bridge the spiritual community and the bridge the spiritual world, to the mainstream people so they can understand that um, you don't have to dress a certain way. You don't have to uh, have your house looking a certain way. You can have a normal life and connect with God or connect with the universe. Or, I mean, if you sit down for 15 minutes a day and just say, all right, I'm going to listen to God, or I'm going to open up to God, I think that your life can change. And like, same with people that go to church, no, judgment there at all. If that's what you want to do and that feels like you're connecting, then so be it. And the only thing extra I would tell you to do is try to make sure that you're finding your own connection with God and not a connection that someone else is telling you to have. And just because my connection to God is like, and Jesus and all of them is something that's for me right now. And it's like sacred and no one could tell me any different. So do you have any thoughts on any of that? I was just saying.
I agree. It's just,
Right.
yes, I was so into listening to what you were saying that I wasn't remembering what you just said. But basically, I was like, I don't remember what you said like 5 minutes ago. I remember what you just said
Yes.
about like the church and stuff, and like the sensationalism and the theatrics. Yes. And that's been there. Like when I even first got into this and first started touring, like the touring circuit, there's a lot of that, and some people will literally like walk around with a crow on their shoulder, I mean, it's like, ooh, so, or, but instead, within myself, I had to always keep coming back to like, I don't want to be the person in judgment of that. That is not who I want to be, because that just taints my own heart and spirit. And then that just distorts my message because I have judgment within it. You know what I'm saying? So I just trust that spirit knows what spirit's doing, and spirit can bring people to him in any way, shape, and form that spirit wants to do it. You know what I mean? Beyond my awareness or my judgment. And if it's theatrical, maybe they're a theatrical person. Maybe they were literally into theater and that's the way they connect, dancing and very dramatic. Maybe they're a dramatic person and their life has been super dramatic and their experiences have been so dramatic that it's only understood through drama. I don't know. But, I basically had to kind of, that's not me. And I'm not drawn to it. I'm actually kind of put off by it. But that's because that's not me. And some people, it may be them. And maybe they are drawn to the sensationalism of it. You know what I'm saying? And who am I to judge it? So I
Mhm.
just try to just come back to myself with that over and over and over, because it's too easy to stand in judgment. And then I'm like, okay, well, then who am I being right now in that place of judgment? And what am I offering my clients? I'm teaching judgment. Like, I don't want to teach that. And putting myself on this high horse, you know, um, when I don't know their heart. I don't know, even if they're wearing like the goth makeup and like the crow on the shoulder. I mean, I don't know their heart. But God does. So
Well, and that's what I was gonna say. God put them in that position for
yeah.
a reason. And
So yeah. So and then I think about Jesus like changed the world with 12 freaking people. 12. Okay. So it doesn't take, you being in a podium in front of these huge people. I mean, you don't know. Like, spirit will work in the amount that we are willing to let it work through us. You know what I'm saying? So yeah,
I do.
I just keep
Well, and
coming back to that. Mhm.
something that my wife used to say, she's like she would meet someone that's a practitioner or something, because I have my center, I have 2 wellness centers down here over here in Ohio, and I have, I think right now there's 26 different practitioners that work out of each one. So my wife's met a bunch of practitioners, and I'm not saying these are practitioners that are affiliated with my center. I'm just saying we're in the practitioner world where we're meeting a lot of different people. And she would ask me, like, how is, I don't understand how that, and excuse my language, but like shitty person is a healer and like able to, like, how are they helping other people when they are just not a good person and they like are backstabbing, or they're just talking about other people behind their back and all that kind of stuff. And what I've ultimately, and I agree 100% with, you always have to come back to not being in a place of judgment, because there's always a in my opinion, there's always a part of you that does want to judge, and you judge, and then it's like, I think there's a difference between judging and having an opinion maybe, or, just not dwelling on it, because I might see someone, I'm like, "Oh gosh," but then I'm like, "I don't know them, I'm gonna talk to them," and then I do, and they are genuine or they're not, and I just stay away from them. But
Mhm.
anyway, she was like, "How does this crappy person, um, heal?" And I was like, God knows why they are where they're at, and even though a lot of people are put off by them, there's gonna be a lot of people that they're gonna help as well, and they have their role, in society, basically. And although having a crow on their shoulder would be pretty cool.
I literally saw that. It was like, I can't remember where I was touring, but I was like, wow, they went all in for that.
Do you still tour and travel and do, like, expos and stuff?
I haven't done it since COVID. Like, my last one was in Chicago right when COVID started. And then, during COVID, I just stopped doing it. And then my kids got older. And so their weekend activities got way more involved. When your kids are younger, they don't have all of this, weekend activities. They're just kind of with you. So, anyways, so I just kind of diverted and haven't done it. Haven't done a lot of touring. Yeah.
That's a lot of time and devotion to
Mhm.
travel the country and do that kinda stuff. I have a lady, she was a practitioner at my, center. She does crystal surgery and a bunch of other stuff, but she just found that in herself where she wants to travel and do all that, and she's doing it, she's loving it right now. But, what was it? Oh, yeah, at the expos like that, I don't travel, I don't do any of that, but I will go to, it's called the Body, Mind, Spirit Expo, and it's here in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, twice a year, in the fall and in the spring, and absolutely love going out there. I talk to so many genuine people. I've had a booth out there. This year, we have 2 booths up there for the center. We're gonna have all the practitioners there, some people doing sessions, all it's gonna be cool. But when I do walk around there, there is just so many different people there and so many different energies, and when I walk through there, I went through phases where I'll walk through and I'm like, "There's so many people, like, desperate people here at these events that need genuine help," and then there's so many, predatorial kind of, like, practitioners here. And I just always in my heart just set it out there that I hope that the people that's in desperate need of help right now finds the proper person, even if it is that predatory person or whatever. I hope they have the discernment to know not to, like, I don't know, fall for whatever they're falling for or whatever. But I don't know. That's just always something that didn't rub me right with that. So,
Yes. Amen and amen. I
yeah.
totally agree. And I have been there also. I've worked at Body, Mind, and Spirit Expo too, like
Oh, really?
that circuit. Yeah, they go all over. And yes, and I have seen a lot of things that are that can get twisted, or yeah, I don't even want to give it any energy because
I never.
but I would agree, like being discerning, spiritually discerning. And I love that you pray that over people of just like, please let the ones that are meant for me find me, and let the ones that are whatever they're seeking, let them find what they're seeking, what their heart needs. You know what I mean? And protect them from any hurt, harm, or danger, physical, mental, spiritual. Mhm.
I agree. Side question now, kind of really off topic. Do you believe in aliens? I
Um,
know
yeah.
it's I do I think it's something. It's actually really crazy because there's so many spiritual people. Not so many. There's some spiritual people that have really like surprised me when they're like, I don't believe in aliens, and it's like, oh, what? I mean, you're tapping in all this stuff, but you don't believe that there's aliens or whatever. Um,
I mean, if you believe in angels, you kind of have to believe in aliens because they're non-planetary beings. If you believe in Jesus, you know what I mean? Like that you can still communicate with us. I mean, they're non-planetary. They don't live here. So, you know what I'm saying? They're not.
I do.
So, in depending on, I guess, how you define aliens. they are alien to this planet, all beings that are not, you know, humans or other species that live here. So anyways.
Well, and I think there's like interdimensional beings, and then you have like I don't know, the physical beings as well. And I don't know. I visit a Pleiadian ship that's hovering Earth camouflaged often, and it's like a cylinder shape, and I chat with them all the time, and it's and that like I don't know. I have a very strong tie with them, but I had this they were showing me like it was maybe a year ago that they were working closely with the Greys, and the Greys were doing something with humanity where they were coming down and they were like emitting this frequency over neighborhoods, and they were actually it was a good thing though.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, quick question. Have you ever tapped into like the Pleiadian race or anything like that?
Yes.
Have you ever saw anything with the ship of like around Earth at all?
I don't think so. I mean, I haven't looked for a ship. I mean, maybe in a session, because sometimes I just channel for people, but I don't carry those memories, so I don't remember. But I do a lot of channeling for different galactic beings and stuff if that's what my clients are seeking. And I, so no, I haven't necessarily gone up into a ship, a Pleiadian ship like that specific ship that you were talking about that I
I was
remember.
just curious.
I had
Just curious if you have.
experiences with aliens. And I think if you do what we do long enough, you're going to run into it. And
Mhm.
and then it's going to challenge your preconceived notions. You're going to have to, humble yourself and open your heart a little bit more.
Right.
I mean,
We are definitely not alone, that's for sure.
I
Have you
that was one of my psychic boundaries. The first time I was like, I don't want to see aliens. Like it freaked me out. So I was like, they can talk to me, but I don't want to see them. Like I don't want to popping in at night, or it just freaked me out until I started interacting, and I'm like, why is this? Why was that? Why did I have so much fear around it? So that's yeah.
well, and I tell everyone it always seems even with talking with spirit or anything, it always seems more scarier than it is, and then you're like, "Oh, hold on, this isn't scary." But it still spooks me out if I hear an audible voice across the room or something, or I something moves or something. I'm like, "Oh, what was that?" And but yeah, I had someone recently that was saying the same thing. They were like, I'll talk with spirits, but I don't want no aliens coming down to me." And I'm like, "Why? What?" It was really weird. Quick story. There was I walked upstairs in my house, and our upstairs we don't even use it, and it's just like a bunch of storage. And I walked up there, and I saw a alien like a gray, like in my imagination, standing in a doorway up there. And I was like, it's kind of weird. But one of those things where it was like, I'm busy, don't have time to really tap into that. I'm going to just keep doing what I'm doing. So then I walked downstairs, went back up the next day because we had a printer up there. That's what it was. I was printing stuff off, and I saw it again. And then my son goes up there, and then he comes back down. He's like, "Hey," he said, "That was weird." I was like, "What was weird?" He said, "You saw an alien up there." And I was like,
Yes.
"So there's really an alien out there. I gotta feel into this now and see why this alien is out there." But I don't know. I've had little experiences like that. I would love to see like an actual UFO or something. Have you ever seen anything like that? A UFO like in the sky?
Yes. I think part of the reason why I like had that as my first like psychic boundary of not wanting to see aliens was because of an experience I had as a child. Um, like it wasn't like a negative abduction experience, but I had, and I didn't really, it was stored in my subconscious, so I didn't really remember it. I had like a blanket memory over that until I did some hypnosis. And I always thought the memory was super weird. I don't think I've ever shared this actually on any of my videos. So, but I had this blanket memory as a child, and it was always like a very strong memory, and something felt strange about it, but I didn't know what it was. So the blanket memory was I was in my front yard. I was probably about 6 or 7, and my parents were in the backyard. And this is my real house, so this was real. Um, and they were working the garden, and I was playing in the front yard. And then the kind of memory was that this white van drove up, and there was a guy in it that had like red spiky hair and freckles, and he turned to me and he said, "Hey kid, you want some candy?" Okay. And then he kind of laughed, like, like, okay, I'm going to scare her because kids know not to fall for a white guy in a van, asking for candy.
Very stereotypical kidnapper.
Yeah. So, and his laugh was like a creepy laugh, like, ha, 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 like, I don't know, like an arch nemesis type of laugh. And then he drove off, and I was paralyzed. And I remember that, like, I couldn't talk. I wanted to scream for my parents. I was really freaked out. And my parents were just right around the backyard, but I couldn't talk and I couldn't move. So I was like, this. So I thought in my memory that I was so scared, I couldn't scream, I couldn't call for my parents, and I couldn't move. And then eventually I was able to move. And that's all I remember. I don't remember talking to my parents about it. I don't remember what I did after that. But the memory of that was always in my mind. And I'm like, what's weird about that is like, it's so quintessential. What every kid learns is like the bad guy. It's like a white unmarked van, a scary looking guy who says this phrase. Like it just seemed so like too perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like a scene out of something that like, so it always kind of bothered me. And then the paralysis bothered me because I remember the paralysis, that feeling of like being stuck in my head, but not able to move my body. And I was like, that was the weirdest, freakiest feeling of like, I'm totally conscious. I just cannot communicate and I cannot be my human self. So I remembered that. So then later on, when I got older, I was like, I'm going to look back at that memory because that memory is just weird. You know what I mean? So I did some self hypnosis around it, and then and some journaling, and I went back to this memory. And what had actually happened was a ship showed up right above me in that moment, and it looked like a silicone boob. Have you ever seen like a fake boob if it's not in a
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about.
circular globe kind of, but it's like silicone.
Blobby.
Yes. And it looked like that. And I looked up as a child and I like kind of poked at it. It was like reachable. And I kind of poked at it and it kind of like moved, and it kind of worked what was around, but I couldn't see the ship. It was like, I don't know, kind of muddled, like I see through. Anyway, so I poked at it. And then when I touched it, I went up into the ship. And when I was there, they were kind of checking out my body, which is a whole nother different story. But it wasn't negative. It wasn't like being taken advantage of, but it was more like medical, like checking me out, like doing a medical exam. And again, nothing like sexual. It wasn't scary, like being taken advantage of. It was just like almost like checking in on me. Like we need to check in on our girl. We need to make sure she's okay and she still has all the working parts.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then, but I was paralyzed when I was up there laying on the table. And then I came back down into my body and I still had some of that paralysis in my body. And then they gave me some sort of fake memory of that. They like flashed.
Okay.
So, anyways, after that, I was like, wow, that's why I was so freaked out and didn't want an experience with aliens, like subconsciously. That was my first kind of experience.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, that's just the fake memory thing always scared me actually. That's something that has always kind of fake or not faking scared me as well. It's a couple things. I just saw something where someone reported a blob like uh UFO or UAP, whatever they call it now, and
You're,
and that
I'm sorry, the shaman in me is like, okay, you got
I know it's all of a sudden coming up.
this more. Yeah, you got
That's good though.
to. Yes.
That's good to note because I don't think about that stuff that often. I'm just, oh, allergies. I mean, I agree with you. Thought,
Aren't doing
well,
this whole time we're talking and talking about this. It's like,
well, and I'm actually going to be saying something else that makes a little bit of sense with that as well. So,
I'll,
um,
Just
You're good. I'm glad you pointed that out actually, because I didn't even think about it, and it brings more meaning to my throat clearing now. So, but there was first there was a report of someone that just saw a UFO or UAP that was blob-like, and they said it was like shifting almost, and kind of said it was the same shape as you.
Mhm.
Uh, but another thing that is weird is as you're saying that, talking about all that, I'm having this like blanket or this memory or this
Mm.
thought. I believe I was communicating with, I don't know. I don't know where this thought's coming from, but I know this is something that I experienced. But uh, uh, I was told that that there were alien or whatever you want to call them beings that do abduct. I don't know if light worker would be the correct thing, or like the people that are sent here to help people. But basically, they are collecting that. They are checking in with us like that, and they are abducting, not, well, I guess, abducting us and checking to make sure that we're still doing, or our bodies still have whatever it needs, or our energy is wherever it needs to be. And I think that, um, I think that's true. So with that, an experience that I had when I was younger, and you made me remember this, is I woke up and I lived in an apartment building, so the apartment building outside of my window, was nothing, and it was on the 3rd floor, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and I saw this super bright light outside of my window, and I was like, "What is that?" And then I put the covers over my head, and then I, like, looked up, and there was this thing standing next to me that was, like, the brightest white light you can possibly imagine, and it was, like, beaming off of it. Same here. And it was, like, beaming off of it, and I was like, "Oh my god," and it scared me because I didn't know what it was, and I, like, closed my eyes or covered my eyes or something, and I pulled it down again, and it was still there, and then I forget what happened after that, but I thought in my mind, I was like, "Oh, I was just dreaming, and I saw this light outside of my window because there's a light up there," and I went out and looked the next day. I was, like, 7 or 8 years old, and there was no light there, and, still to this day, that's something that I actually haven't went back and looked at myself on what happened there, but you're encouraging me to do that now with your story. So, maybe there was something there. Oh, definitely there was something there, but, um, that is really crazy how they can give you that fake memory, especially, like, that memory that they gave you. It's kind of hilarious because it's like, do
Yeah.
they have a sense of humor or
Think the paralysis was real, and so they maybe had to give me a memory that would make me feel like, "Oh, I was scared, and that's why I wasn't able to move or talk." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We had to at least have something to do that would make sense of the paralysis, because I think the paralysis stayed around.
And it was weird enough for you to remember in your adulthood where you can say,
That's a good
"That
point.
was weird. I need to tap into that." So, I believe all things happen for a reason, and God knows exactly what we're gonna do, where we're gonna do it. So, maybe in that moment, it was something you were meant to tap into and learn about, and, I don't know, I find that fascinating, though. And honestly, that's something I worry about with my kids is like, I'm like, man, I hope no aliens come and take them tonight or like do anything with them. But it's
Mhm.
like a weird fear that I have. So maybe that ties into my childhood thing as well. So we're figuring things out.
Yeah, I had the same with my kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
One in particular, my middle kid, where, I I just felt like he was a part of some sort of, like, secret space program, something he was, something where he was taken away. He was in the GT classes, and they would always kind of pull out from class. They would do these things where, and he I remember just things that he would say on those days that just stayed with me, as an intuitive, you would be like, I just felt like I don't remember anything I do on those days. I'm like,
That's a warning sign there.
I'm like, where are you going? Or he'll be like, even later, because he's 17 now, and he'll say something like, that year was the weirdest year. It's like it just always feels weird to me, like that. And then he'll say something like, I just felt like I was always out of my mind or out of my body, or like I don't have the memories like attached to that year that I do every other year. Um, and he's very psychically active in his dreams, and he'll tell me like almost every day he'll have some dream where he goes to some planet, he does some activity, almost like a little, like a soldier, but in some way he's doing something for some larger cause, spiritually. And he has these roles that he performs in different planets, in different places, in different dimensions. And anyways, he's not really even into this realm, like what I do. He's not really into this realm. He's not really into, but he has the dreams, he has the experiences, and he's so like clear minded when he shares them with me. I'm like, yeah, there's reality to your experience. It's not just like another dream world. Mm-hmm.
Oh, 100%. And I think that that's something that for him and you both to maybe pay attention to, because there's gonna be like he'll be able to gather information if he pays enough attention to understand what's actually going on there. And then like the how you're saying it's like those years I don't even remember, those days I don't remember. Um, I forget. I don't even know where I watched it at. It was some kind of podcast or documentary or something, but it had someone on there that is an adult now that said he was a child in the space program that the aliens had or whatever, and was a soldier on Mars or something like that. And I found that very fascinating. And he said that the aliens would come down, and he said basically what they would do is they would play a frequency that like puts everyone in a hypnotic kind of state, and he would go and spend like weeks on Mars and then come back, and only like 5 minutes have passed, and his parents are like, oh, I don't even know where I went for that amount of time. And then he's still laying in bed again, and he's like, I was just in Mars for 2 weeks and no one even knew. My parents had no clue, whatever. So I don't know. I always found that fascinating, and I don't know, maybe hopefully I don't know. I don't know if your child would like to do that or not, or if you'd like him to do it or not. But I don't know. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, I think, well, clearly our kids chose us for a reason. There's purpose in the fact that they have parents like us. And I also think, like, I'm sure you know this as a parent too, like their soul's path is their soul's path. I have no control over that. I can be me and trust that like I'm supposed to be the best parent I can possibly be, and I'm supposed to contribute to their life, but like what they're doing, what they're called to is completely theirs. And so obviously you don't want them to get any hurt or harm or anything like that. But his life, his path is totally his own, just like ours is completely different from our parents.
Right. Well, and we'll get ready to start wrapping this up here in just a second. One other thing I wanted to say on that topic is just that um, I wrote in a question to you on YouTube about my son and about like having to send him to regular school or something like that a long time ago, and you answered it, and you said something similar to that of just like your kid did choose you. They chose this path. They chose this path. They chose their life that they're going to live, and so on. We did, however, choose to homeschool our children, but um, and he loves that, thankfully. But that helped out a lot. Basically, is just understanding that my child did choose. His soul did choose this life. His soul did choose to um, do all the decisions that we're going to make. So it's not like we're making the wrong decision, because everything's in divine time. And even if you make the wrong decision, which I don't think it's the wrong decision, I think it's meant to happen, the universe is going to get you back on path to the right decision anyway. So it doesn't really matter. Um, but yeah, that's very helpful advice for anyone that's watching. And it was very good advice for me. So, um, we'll start wrapping everything up. A couple things I want to say. I want to give you here in just a second an opportunity to tell people where they can find you and all that stuff. I'll put some links to all the links that I have. I have a few different links for you in the description of the podcast on YouTube, Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts as well, Facebook, all that. But I just want to tell anyone that is watching, I highly recommend Rachel for anything because, as you can tell by this, the whole conversation, just a genuine person and very honest and just I don't know, you're just an awesome person and full of knowledge. You also have your master's degree in education as well, which I can imagine helps you a ton with formatting how you're going to teach things, which is amazing. Um, and I just want to shout out one other thing. You were voted the best medium in the world in 2016, which is just awesome. So, anyway, check out her YouTube channel, check out her website, and I highly recommend you do so. So, Rachel, for anyone that is wanting to reach out to you, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you did a good job. You kind of just gave a big promotion right there. But my website, I think it's just like the hub of everything, which is the modernshaman.net. .com was taken, so it's .net. Everybody gets like a little confused. And
Which, by the way, real quick, I just want to say your website is really well put together as well. I go to some websites and they're not, and yours was really, really nice. I was looking at it last night.
oh wow, thank you. Yeah. So it's a big hub of everything. And obviously I have the YouTube channel, which is all free content, and it's a lot of free teaching because it was just like Q&As. People would send in a question and I would just talk about it. Um, Obviously, I have my teaching curriculum. You said that already. I do have my master's in education. So my background is teaching, and I have a heart for teaching. Teaching this and teaching people to step into themselves and who they were created to be. So that is online. Like my teaching platform and modules and all that is always online. It's always available. But I also have in-person classes that I do every so often too. And
Where are you located in person?
San Antonio, Texas. Um, yeah. So I don't know if you can see San Antonio, that made me think, oh, this is my office. I'm right here. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm
Cool. Do you have anything else that you wanted to put out there?
I would just like to say thank you. It's encouraging to me. I feel like I'm at a place in my life where so many people that I have taught or trained are now fully standing in their own spiritual businesses or healing or even just walking in their life like with integrated connection. And it makes me very, very happy. Just humbling and just sincerely like so grateful to see your life and to like hear about your life and your kids' life and that impact, And so anyways, I'm grateful.
Well, thank you. And I think honestly, that's one of the most gratifying or one of the most I don't know. It's an amazing thing to see your people benefiting from what you're putting out because as unfortunate as it is, it doesn't always feel like people are taking it in, and it's great to see when people do. And I appreciate you. I know many other people appreciate you, even if you haven't heard from them, and I know you know that. But well, I want to tell you I appreciate you coming on to the podcast, and um, yeah, and for everyone watching, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you on the next one.